Hey everybody. I often have people ask me the question, what do I do at the start of a project? And of course the answer is, well, it depends on what the project's about. What I put together in this lesson is just some information about what kind of information do you need to look for based on the kind of project you're working on. So what I've done is I've made some categories of projects, and I said, okay, for this category of project, typically the information you need is this kind of information. And then I've given some examples of actual projects so you can see how that applies in context in a real project. Now, this is guidelines, so I don't want you to take this and say, Jerry said this is the only information that I need for this project. No. So what I've given you is some guidelines, a starting point, a way to think about your project. Any particular project, you may find other things that you need to know. Plus, all I'm putting here is the starting point. I'm not giving you every kind of requirement you're ever going to need on that project, because for a lot of projects you're going to need every kind of requirement over time. But what I want to give you is where to start. What's the important information that you need to start with to get the project going, and as you work on the project you're going to find the additional information that you need to collect. Okay, so with that caveat, I want to show you some sample projects, and here I put a little table of contents so you can see what's in here. I've categorized the projects three different ways. Corporate internal projects, so that's your typical IT kind of project. Creating a product for sale. We're going to look at things in a little different way when we're creating products that we're going to sell to someone else than if we're doing a project inside the company. And then the third category I made was business process projects, because again those are going to look pretty different from the other two. And then under each category I have several different kinds of projects. So under corporate internal we're going to look at maintaining existing software, installing third-party software, updating third-party software, and creating new software. If we're creating a product for sale, we'll look at maintaining an existing product, creating a new product in an existing line of business, and creating all new software. And then finally, under business process projects, we have write the business processes for a new company, change or add a business goal or corporate direction, and update a business process. So again, these aren't every possible kind of project you could ever be involved with, but I think it gives a nice overview of pretty typical projects that we're involved with as business analysts. This is installing third-party software. This is where my company has purchased software and we want to install it into our company. This one I've seen people just really be uncertain what to do in terms of requirements. And so actually there are requirements for it. We need to know who's going to use this software we're installing. We need to know how they're going to use it, how the use of the software will impact the business, and how this software is going to integrate into our existing systems. I've seen people take a third-party software and say, well, we already know what it does, so what are the project requirements? Well, the project requirements aren't what the software does. The project requirements are how are we going to use it. Okay, so again, a sample project. We have a bank, and they've purchased a new document management system. So the system will be used by all the branch employees for medium-term storage of branch documents. I need to know what the actual list of users is. Who are they? The teller, the loan officer, branch manager, who are all the people? And this is an actor. And then I need to know what is meant by medium-term storage. What do we mean by that? And that will be one or more business rules that will be associated with that. Then the new software will be used when any new bank account is requested and when any kind of loan is applied for. Okay, well now I know the situation where we're going to use the software, so I need to find out what the current processes are and how we're going to change them to use the new software. So we're going to document processes. They might already be documented or they might not be. And a lot of companies don't have their business processes documented. So you might be documenting the as is, what's going on today, and then changing those processes to show how they're going to use the new software. So what are we going to use to document processes? Could be business process models, use cases, activity diagrams, flowcharts, or even storyboards. We also want to ask the question, are there any other uses for document storage? So we've been given one in terms of the project description, but what else might we use the system for? Then the documents will come from the bank account and loan processing systems, so there should be an easy way to move them from the other systems into the document management system. We're not going to create the documents in the document management system. We're going to create them someplace else and move them in. Now I need to know, how is this going to work? Is it going to be automated, or does somebody have to do this? How are we going to make this work? How are we going to integrate these systems? How are we going to move the documents? The requirements could be expressed as processes potentially, to talk about how it moves. Especially if a person's doing the work, we're probably going to document the requirements as a process of some kind. But it could be a technical interface specification, and that would be the case where it's more automated. So we may have a point in our business process where, for example, a loan officer saves a loan application, and one of the actions that the system does in that process is to copy that loan application into the document management system. So we're going to need to know the processes, which we identified before, where in those processes this happens, and who's doing it. Is it a person? Is it automated? And that will tell us then what we need in terms of requirements, if it's process requirements or if it's going to be something more technical. Okay. Then we have another thing here, another statement from the project. There has to be a way to move documents from this system into our long-term archives. Okay, again, I need details of how this is going to work. Again, is it automated? Does a person have to do it? What process is it part of? What's the time frame? So again, this is another one where the requirements could be expressed as processes and also through a technical interface specification. We also need to look at business rules, because we want to know how long the documents are in medium-term storage before moving them to long-term storage. Then the last statement for this project, the new system will also store all bank training manuals. Oh, okay, that's different. Who should be able to upload, download, edit those manuals? How will they do it? Are these manuals just at the branch level? Is it coming from someplace else? Are we allowed to edit the manuals or not? So we need to know all kinds of information about how this is going to work, who's going to do it. We're going to have actors and use cases. Or if it's not use cases, it'll be other ways to describe a process, business process models, activity diagrams, flow charts. Okay, but we need some way to describe a process. Then we also want to ask the question if there are other documents that will be kept permanently in the system and not moved to long-term storage. Because see, this is the big difference here. The other documents were here temporarily, and we had a process that we've figured out as to how to move those documents into long-term storage. But now the training manuals, that's a whole different thing. We're not going to move those into long-term storage, so now we need to know what their process is, and we need to know the rules. What are the business rules for managing the training manuals, which are documents that are not going into long-term storage? Okay, so that was a project to install third-party software where what we have to do is figure out how we're going to use the third-party software. You'll notice in there wasn't anything that said, how does the third-party software work? We've got manuals for that. The other company has described how to use their software. We need to figure out how we're using it in our environment, in our context. And so that's where all your processes will come from. It's going to be your overall business processes within which you use the third-party software. Thank you for listening.